When I started to watch The One and Only Ivan, I got very scared. I was like, oh no, this is for babies and I'm an adult. How am I going to sit through an hour and a half of this? But I kept going because it's my job. And thankfully, after about 10 to 15 minutes, things got real interesting, real sophisticated, real fast. I'm giving you this warning because I'm worried that you might turn it off when you start it, because you too will be like, this clearly isn't for me. This is a preschool movie. But it's not. It's not. Stick with it. You will be rewarded. Although you'll be rewarded with tears. You'll be like, what did you do to me, Grace? Because this movie isn't just sad. It's Pixar sad. But the good type of Pixar sad, where they earn their emotional punches. In fact, there's one moment in the third act that's meant to pack a particularly strong emotional punch. And boy, does it. In fact, when they have the reveal, I kind of knew it was coming. They set it up really nicely, but I was not prepared for what it did to me emotionally. Because as soon as they cut to it, I actually burst into tears. And I was not prepared for that. I'm sitting here watching The One and Only Ivan, a streaming movie, and I'm bawling my eyes out. I'm telling you, it's a good time. Hey, some of you like crying during Pixar movies, so you'll like this too. It's really, really good. Now, the only other Disney movie that's ever made me cry this much was the original animated Dumbo, which I recently rewatched a few years ago to get ready for the more recent Dumbo. And I have to say, that original Dumbo is like emotional napalm. Like, I also burst into tears. I was like, oh my God, it's so sad. And speaking of baby elephants, it was weird to have one in this movie and the voice of Danny DeVito, considering, of course, Danny DeVito just was in the recent Dumbo. And I'm like, Disney, why did you make the same movie basically twice in the last 2 years? It's weird. It's an odd choice. Now, which one is better? Now, you might recall in my review that I enjoyed Tim Burton's Dumbo for what it was, Tim Burton's take on Dumbo. If you hire Tim Burton to direct Dumbo, that's what you get. And I enjoyed it. But The One and Only Ivan is definitely more on brand for Disney. And by putting it on Disney Plus, they finally have a winner. The Mouse gets some streaming content in addition to The Mandalorian, which has been doing all the heavy lifting up until this point. That's not only top quality, but uniquely Disney. You're like, this is why people love Disney. Here it is in The One and Only Ivan. Now, of course, you might be like, Grace, I already fell for this with Artemis Fowl, which, like The One and Only Ivan, was also supposed to play in theaters. And we all laugh and cringe at the idea that Artemis Fowl would play in theaters. Although I have to say, I have met some people who liked it. There have been some people who liked Artemis Fowl. Did you like Artemis Fowl? Don't worry, this is a safe space. You could admit it down below. I found it pretty unwatchable. But I like this much more. And in fact, I think that The One and Only Ivan could have played in theaters. Would it have been a must-see in theaters? Probably not, but I think it's definitely on par with the recent Christopher Robin and Pete's Dragon, two Disney films that I did enjoy seeing in the theater. But I have to say, you might be like, those movies were all on medium, Grace. Well, I think that because The One and Only Ivan was so moving, and also because it's based on a true story, I actually think it's better than those two movies. I really did have a surprisingly good time. Maybe it's because my expectations were a little low. A little low. And again, it scared me so much at the beginning. I was so grateful that that wasn't the case, that it wasn't a movie for preschoolers. Maybe that was a factor as well. But I'm telling you, I had a good time. Now back to this thing about it being based on a true story. At the very end of the movie, they show you some real photos of the actual Ivan, which of course is always fun. But it really struck me for one particular photo, which we see Ivan do the same thing, the same action. It's a small action. You'll know it when you see it. I don't want to give it away because it was so incredible to experience it. But I'll walk you through what happened to me without spoilers. So when I saw it in the movie, I was like, a gorilla would never do that. That's such a forced Hollywood moment. Nice try. And I felt the movie at that instance had gone a little bit too far. But then to see a photo of the actual Ivan doing it, I couldn't believe my eyes. And I was like, damn, humans constantly underestimate animals. And that's part of what this movie is about. It's also about being an artist, defying stereotypes, the power and importance of protest, which of course is very timely right now. There are just so many great lessons in this movie. They're everywhere. So many layers. I mean, it's on the surface, it seems so simple, but it's actually quite complex. And I think not only would people of all ages be able to appreciate it, but I think it lends itself to really great discussion, and amongst anyone, but particularly amongst families. I think families could have a great time talking about this movie afterwards, which again makes it great Disney content. Now, Thea Sharrock directs. This is only her second feature. Her directorial debut, she comes from television, I think, Call the Midwife. But her directorial debut, Me Before You, which was also quite touching, I thought, but without being like overly saccharine. And speaking of not being too sweet, Mike White wrote the script here. He even has a cameo, by the way, himself, and he voices Frankie the Seal. I was like, who's Frankie the Seal's voice? I know what Mike White looks like, but I have a harder time recognizing his voice. White also wrote some clunkers, but he did write School of Rock, and The One and Only Ivan is likewise a perfect mix of heart and edge. The movie also has some fantastic performances. Sam Rockwell, we already know he's an amazing actor, but I'm so glad to see him moving more into voice work. In Trolls World Tour, I was like, who's voicing this character? He's a delight. Sam Rockwell. And here, while he sounds more like Sam Rockwell, he, of course, once again does a tremendous job. His work as Ivan is incredibly nuanced and heartfelt. He is the center, the core of the movie. And Danny DeVito is the comedic relief. What a treat. He is a real hoot. Danny DeVito still has brilliant line readings, particularly when it comes, he can do both comedy and, both Sam Rockwell and Danny DeVito are very talented, but Ivan's not really a comedic role here. But Bob sure is. Oh, he was fantastic. And I think dog lovers will particularly enjoy Bob. I know a dog lover, and I was like, I got to tell her about this movie. She's going to go nuts. And then the animation on both those characters in particular was very well done. And only occasionally was I like, oh yeah, they're VFX. I mean, I kind of knew they were VFX while I was watching, because I was like, there's no way they could train an animal to do that. But by the way, I really need a making of behind the scenes short, because multiple times during the movie, I wasn't just like, how'd they do that? But I was like, how'd they do that on this budget? This must have been so incredibly expensive. I was very, very impressed. Ivan's eyes are particularly well animated, very sharp and clear. You really feel like you're looking into an actual soul. That's how clear it is. So when you combine the animation of the eyes and Sam Rockwell's performance, well, you have no hope of not becoming an emotional puddle by the end of the movie. Brooklyn Prince is adorable as Ruby, the baby elephant, and everyone does a nice job, with one exception, Angelina Jolie. Her line readings were so stilted and emotionless. I was like, who is this? And then I was like, it's Angelina Jolie, isn't it? Because she also, of course, did Tigress, who's a popular character in the Kung Fu Panda movies, but I never liked the voice work that Jolie did there either. I think someone needs to explain to her that she's voicing animated characters, because she is flat. So flat, really flat. And if you're a Philippa Sue fan, I'm sorry to say she's unrecognizable as the parrot. I mean, I was looking at the credits to do my notes here, and I was like, Philippa Sue was in this? And I was like, oh, she was the parrot. I never once wondered who the parrot was, because it was just standard parrot. As for the live action cast, at first you think Bryan Cranston is slumming. You're like, weren't you Walter White? What are you doing? But he does add a lot of, I'd say, depth and pathos, right? Pathos. When you see it, you'll know that's the right word. To his shopping mall ringmaster, which sounds like a role that requires pathos right there, right? But he also gets to do one physical sight gag, which is a real zinger. I can't even believe he did it. There was no vanity involved in doing that sight gag. And so I have a lot of respect for him for doing it and doing it so well. Ramon Rodriguez and Ariana Greenblatt also strike just the right tone. And Indira Varma from Game of Thrones, because when I saw her, I was like, where do I know that woman from? Because she's so out of context here. I'm like, what? So she's here. She shows up very briefly, but she also does a nice job. I expected Disney, by the way, to put a plug for Animal Kingdom in the movie, and when you see the movie, you'll know where the plug should be, and I applaud them for resisting doing that, because I think it would have seemed real crass. But I'm sure Disney will promote this film in Animal Kingdom, and vice versa, as on the surface, it does seem like perfect synergy. However, it doesn't just remind me. I mean, this is a movie about animals in captivity, and I have my own animals in captivity experience. Years ago, when Animal Kingdom had first opened, I decided to go. I mean, everybody, of course, wanted to check it out. It was the new Disney theme park. And so I went on a number of the animal exhibits because that's, what makes Animal Kingdom different than the other theme parks. And then the gorilla trail, I will never forget one adult male gorilla in the corner looking at us, all the visitors, through the glass with such disdain, like, "Come for the show, have you?" And the look on his face was so human, and it just struck me. And I've never been able to go to a zoo since. Even the animal, I still go on Kilimanjaro Safari, because I guess no animals are looking me in the eye there. But also it seems like they have some more freedom. But he was very much in like a small glass enclosure. I don't know where he's allowed to run free during off hours, but here he did not seem too happy. And I've never been able to like zoos, even Disney's, ever since. So the one and only Ivan has a very important message that even in 2020, I think humans still have not entirely grasped. So I know that's a bit of a downer to put on the review, but I think it's important. The movie doesn't shy away from that kind of discussion, so I didn't want to either. So that's my review of the one and only Ivan, which I highly recommend, and will be, especially because it's part of your Disney Plus subscription. As I said on Movie Math this week, for no extra cost. So enjoy these simpler times while they last, because soon, for this kind of premium content, I think Disney will be asking you for a fee. I don't think $30 for the one and only Ivan, but $20. I would unlock it early for $20, but you can get it, again, as part of your Disney subscription. So it becomes available this Friday, August 21st. So share your thoughts down below about this movie, about Animals in Captivity, your own experiences, Disney Plus, and adding theatrical releases there, both for free and then in the future for money, for an additional fee. Write all those thoughts down below. Subscribe today. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.